What's up, boxing fans? This is TBE Boxing back at you again. Today's topic, Canelo Alvarez give Errol Spence reality check. He is not interested in fighting Spence at 160 pounds. Let's chop it up and see what it's all about.
Got the money for minutes, pretty bitch, gotta show me titties. This is the life that I chose, huh? On the block with the pole, huh? This is the life that I chose, huh? On the block with the pole, huh? That life before riches, huh? That life before riches, huh? Pretty bitch, show me titties, huh? And I got the glazy run up on me, I'ma make you get it. I'ma make you get it.
Now, I follow you on social media, like a lot of people do, and there was a graphic that was thrown up recently of all the top welterweights, and you commented like, look, what are we doing here? I beat several of the guys on this graphic. Can we be done with everybody else but Terence Crawford? Can we just do Errol Spence versus Terence Crawford?
I mean, that could happen. We got to see how it go. But, you know, like I said, I can move up to 160 and fight Canelo Alvarez.
Congratulations. Back here, way back, you have Zimmerman Fight News. Did you see Errol Spence tonight at the fight? And what about fighting him back at Cowboy Stadium in Dallas next year?
Sí, lo vi. La verdad que, pues obviamente, agradecido de que estén aquí. Pues ahorita tenemos otras metas, ¿no? Tenemos otras metas a corto plazo, que es ganar los títulos en las 168 libras y pues más adelante veremos.
Yes, I did saw him. I'm very grateful that he was here, but reality is that we have other goals right now. We have the goals of the 168-pound titles.
Okay, direct from the horse's mouth. Okay, so all this talk about Canelo and Errol Spence, fighting, and we hear it from all these LDBC fanboys. We hear it from Tweedledee and Tweedledum, Phantom Boxing and Blue Blood Sports, making videos about Canelo and Errol Spence is the biggest fight in boxing. We hear the same thing from Blue Blood Sports, same thing from Phantom Boxing, and even, contender regime, who I thought was more or less, a commentator with some common sense. He's out there talking about Errol Spence making chess moves. Well, if Errol Spence was making chess moves, he just got checkmated. Okay, so we see that Canelo have no interest in fighting Errol Spence at 160 pounds. He never did. Okay, so all of this talk, that's been going on about Errol Spence fighting Canelo at 160, it's been all Errol Spence, his fanboys, the commentators, and Errol Spence's team. Okay, basically, clout chasing Canelo, trying to avoid, the fight with Terence Crawford. I mean, this thing is ridiculous, man. I mean, it doesn't really make any business sense. I mean, if you're talking about making business moves, I mean, the fight for Errol Spence is Terence Crawford at 147 pounds. That's the biggest fight in boxing. Why would you keep throwing that fight under the bus? Okay, the biggest fight in boxing, basically. Okay, definitely the biggest fight at 147 pounds. If you are making business moves, why wouldn't you be building that fight? Okay, as opposed to trying to do everything in your power to throw that fight under the bus and not make the fight happen. Okay, I mean, how is that a chess move or a business move? I mean, it's ridiculous. So we see, that Canelo just gave Errol Spence a reality check. Okay, and told him, hey, I'm not interested in fighting you at 160 pounds. I'm going, I'm at 168, and I'm gonna go ahead and unify the titles. Become undisputed at 168 pounds. Okay, which is what Errol Spence is supposed to be doing at 147 pounds. Okay, but instead he's talking about moving up to 160 and fighting Canelo in a fantasy fight. Okay, which Canelo has no interest in whatsoever and never had an interest in fighting Errol Spence. Okay, I mean, like I said in my previous video, okay, Errol Spence is making himself into a laughing stock in the boxing world right now with these kind of moves that he's making. Okay, these are really amateur, silly moves, but it's moves that someone make when they're scared. Okay, he's making scary moves, and you know, we just saw it being confirmed by Canelo. Okay, who has no interest whatsoever in fighting Errol Spence. He has other business moves that he's making. He got his own business move that he's making at 168 pounds. He has no interest in coming down to 160 to fight Canelo, and it doesn't make any sense. Why would he come to 160 to fight Canelo? He got so many options at 168 pounds. You know, the Charlos, you know, you got Andrade, you got Caleb Plant. Better, I mean, there's so many fights that options that Canelo have. You know, why would he want to come down to 160 pounds to fight Errol Spence? It doesn't make any sense. So we see that all of this talk that we've been seeing from Blue Blood Sports, from snitching, fan and boxing, okay, you know, it's all been nonsense, really. You know, just fake news. You know, these guys just making up fake news and pushing narrative about, you know, if you listen to these two guys, you know, you'd think that Canelo is going to fight Errol Spence next. I mean, it's ridiculous. Okay, but you know, these guys, you know, like I said, I keep saying to you people, you know, these guys are getting paid to push their ridiculous narrative, and that's why they push these narratives. Okay, you know, they're not really talking about real boxing. They're not real commentators, you know, that's interested in the sport of boxing. They're just interested in making a fast buck, and that's what they're doing. Okay, you know, making up stories, telling fake news, and trying to fool the people out there and pushing their fake narrative. So we see that what the real story is. You know, I don't, you know, I'm not pushing the narrative. I'm giving it to you from the horse's mouth. We saw it from the horse's mouth. We saw what Errol Spence said. We saw what Canelo said. And, you know, it's up to you to decide if, you know, if Errol Spence and Canelo is going to fight next, like these guys that keep saying are trying to push that narrative. Okay, so now we see what happens, you know, when cloud chasing goes wrong. So here we have Errol Spence, you know, making himself look ridiculous, talking about how he's going to fight Canelo. He could fight Canelo, you know, at 160 pounds. Canelo has no interest in that. Okay, so we see that there was no negotiations going on about them fighting or nothing like that. It's all been just hype from these fake boxing channels like, you know, snitching, fan and boxing, and Blue Blood Sports. Okay, and so it's just been proven. So all this talk, you know, by the LDBC fanboys about Errol Spence making chess moves. Okay, it was all that. It was all that. It was just that talk. Okay, just pure nonsense. And you know, for those of us, you know, for those of you who, you know, probably didn't see the clip, probably didn't understand what he said, let's go back and watch it again. Check this out.
Now, I follow you on social media, like a lot of people do, and there was a graphic that was thrown up recently of all the top welterweights, and you commented like, look, what are we doing here? I beat several of the guys on this graphic. Can we be done with everybody else but Terence Crawford? Can we just do Errol Spence versus Terence Crawford?
I mean, that could happen. We got to see how it go. But, you know, like I said, I can move up to 160 and fight Canelo Alvarez.
Congratulations. Back here, way back, you have Zimmerman Fight News. Did you see Errol Spence tonight at the fight? And what about fighting him back at Cowboy Stadium in Dallas next year?
Sí, sí, lo vi. La verdad que, pues obviamente, agradecido de que estén aquí. Pues ahorita tenemos otras metas, ¿no? Tenemos otras metas a corto plazo, que es ganar los títulos en las 168 libras y pues más adelante veremos.
Yes, I did saw him. I'm very grateful that he was here. But reality is that we have other goals right now. We have the goals of the 168-pound titles.
So there it is. Okay, end of story. So hopefully we're not going to see any more talk about Canelo, you know, and Errol Spence, and you know, Errol Spence would, you know, focus on trying to make the fight with Terence Crawford. Although, you know, we have heard Terence Crawford, you know, after that video that Errol Spence did, at the interview that he did, where he was talking about offering 60-40, 70-30, or whatever he decided to give Terence Crawford, because he could do a fight with Canelo Alvarez at 160 pounds. Now we see there's no such fight happening at all. It's non-existent. Okay, that's what happened when cloud chasing goes wrong. So you need to stop clout chasing Canelo. Stop making himself look like a, you know, the laughing stock of boxing. You know, I mean, basically ruining his whole, ruining his whole look by talking about he got a fight coming up with Canelo, and when there's no such fight, it's all made up, in his head. Okay, and in the vain imaginings of people like Snitch, Fan and Boxing, and Blue Blood Sports. These guys are running these fake narratives, and now you have Errol Spence, basically, believe in the hype, that these guys are pushing. Okay, I mean, you got to be careful in this game, and Errol Spence, is basically tarnishing his brand, by running, with these stories, that these guys on YouTube are making up. Okay, so you need to stop it, come back down to earth, make the fight with Terence Crawford. It's the biggest fight in boxing. Stop running, stop ducking, stop hiding from Terence Crawford. That's the fight that you need to make, okay? And that's the fight that the people want to see. Nobody wants to see, you fight. Not even your own fans want to see you fight Canelo Alvarez, because they already know what's going to happen in that fight, okay? And Canelo has no interest in fighting Errol Spence, never did. Okay, Errol Spence is too smart for him, and he knows that, and he's more. He's fighting guys at 168. Look at the guy he fought just now, Callum Smith. 7 inches taller than him, 9-inch longer reach than him, and he basically battered Callum Smith from pillar to post in that fight. Okay, so I mean, all this talk again about Errol Spence and Canelo, as we can see it and been proven by Canelo himself from his own mouth, it's all fake news. Okay, that's all it is. Fake news by these fake LDBC fanboys out there running narratives. Okay, and so they need to stop it, man. And Errol Spence need to come back down to earth and make the fight that the fans want to see, and stop with all this nonsense and making himself look like a laughing stock. I hate to see. I really hate to see that. But this talk about chess moves and he's making chess moves. Well, if he's making chess moves, like I said, he just got checkmated. Okay, game over. So we're gonna see what's gonna happen now, and who is he gonna fight next? He got some options. He can fight. He can probably have a fight with. Well, he's mandatory for Porter is mandatory right now. Okay, and Manny Pacquiao showed some interest in fighting him, but none of those fights would be as big as a Terence Crawford versus Errol Spence fight. Okay, that's the next natural fight for Errol Spence, and it's the fight he should be making. I mean, the only reason why that fight wouldn't be made, okay, because you're talking about a big fight, that's the big fight, and if the only reason that fight wouldn't be made because he doesn't want to fight, Crawford, or he's afraid. Okay, that's basically just ducking Crawford. That's the only reason why the fight wouldn't be made. I mean, why would he be ducking Crawford? Because he doesn't think he can win against Crawford. So all this talk, about the bully. I mean, about the big fish at 147 pounds. It's just talk, man. Okay, if you're the big fish, then make the big fight, and it's what the people want to see. Okay, so stop with the nonsense. Okay, we see that Canelo is not interested in fighting you. Stop clout chasing Canelo. Stop making yourself look like a laughing stock, and make the fight with Terence Crawford, which is the fight that people want to see. You'll get much more respect if you make that fight, whether you win or lose. Okay, you're still gonna get your respect. Okay, as long as the fight is a good fight, and it is what it is. So hopefully Errol Spence will come to his senses, and make the fight, that the people really want to see, and stop with all this nonsense. I think I'm going to leave it there. This is TBE Boxing. I'm out.